Hello everyone, I'm Anuj and I'm a legal intern with LEXIS and Company, and this is the second part of the topic delegated legislation, and I'll be talking about its evolution, its applicability in India, etc. So ever since statutes were enacted by the Parliament, there has been delegation of legislative functions. In the 15th and 16th centuries, there was frequent case of Henry VIII. And there are clauses in a bill that enable ministers to amend or repeal provisions in an act of parliament using secondary legislation. Statute of Sewers of 1531 empowered commissioners to make, repeal, and amend law, to levy cess, and to pass decrees. Mutiny Act of 1717 conferred on Crown power. The historical backdrop of the delegation of power can be followed from the Charter Act of 1833, when the East India Company was recapturing political impact in India. The Charter Act of 1833 vested the administrative powers only in the hands of the Governor General in Council, which was an official body. He was enabled to make laws and guidelines for revoking, correcting, or modifying any laws or guidelines which were for all people regardless of their nationality. In 1935, the Government of India was passed, which contained a serious plan of delegation. So there are various reasons behind the growth of delegated legislation, which are the old police state has now become a welfare state. Because of this radical change in the philosophy of role of state, its functions have also increased. And according to Committee on Ministers' Powers, pressure upon parliamentary time, which is a result of expanding horizons of state activity, bulk of legislation is great that it is not possible for legislature to devote sufficient time to discuss all the matters in details. Hence, legislature formulates the general policy, which is the skeleton, and empowers its executive to fill in the details. Next one is the experiment, which is the practice of the delegated legislation enables the executive to experiment. This method permits rapid utilization of experience and implementation of necessary changes. The next one is the emergency, which talks about in times of emergency, quick action is needed, and for this the legislative process is not equipped to provide for urgent solution to meet the situation. So it was during the World Wars there was a tremendous increase in delegated legislation. Massive inroads were made into comparatively personal matters of citizens, for example, housing, education, employment, pension, health, or planning, etc. With the vast extension of the functions of government in the 19th century, Parliament was compelled to delegate far-reaching powers to a variety of administrative authorities. In the 20th century, Parliament was obligated to delegate extensive law-making power in favor of the government. A hue and cry was raised against the growth of such delegated legislation. So, the rules of the Committee of the Supreme Court and a body consisting of the Lord of Chancellor, some of the superior judges and representatives, makes rules of the procedure for the High Court and the Court of Appeal. So, and also under the US Constitution, delegated legislation is not accepted in theory because of two doctrines: the doctrine of separation of power and the delegatus non potest delegare, which is, as the Congress gets power from the people and it's a delegate of the people, in that sense it cannot further delegate its legislative power to the executive or any other kind of agents. So also in the landmark judgment of Field versus Clark, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the Tariff Act of 1890 was constitutional, since it only delegated to the President the power of discretion, not the power of legislation. The plaintiffs next argued that Section 3 of the Act, which had given the President power to suspend the tariff rates set by the Act if he felt that certain countries had enacted tariffs harmful to the United States, was an unconstitutional delegation of Congress's legislative power. So this was the concept of delegated legislation, its origin, its evolution, its growth, etc., which I covered in 2 parts. So thank you everyone.